Welcome, everybody, back here on Segal Talks at the Martini Segal Theater, the Graduate Center CUNY, in the middle of New York City in Midtown Manhattan. And it's another week on planet Earth. It's a tumultuous week in America, and the world is watching what has happened here. There was a great presidential election, at least how we see it, and there's a lot of turmoil around it, and it is actually a time. Plays will be written about great place. I think films will be done, and we are right in the middle of it, and where we do ask what are our values, what is theater about, what is art about, also what is politics about, what is democracy about. All these things that are invisible, they don't exist in the real world. They are ideas, they are part of an imagination, but still, this is what is important to our lives, our work, and also for a nation. This is what nations go to war for, and now we are in a moment that is dramatic. And play Antigone, of course, this has been mentioned so often in our talks, like the Galileo from Brecht. Is what do you do? What is law? What is a human law? What is above it? How do you follow a leader? When do you resist and follow your own guidance? So a lot to talk about and a lot to do. We have talked since March with theater artists from around the world, and we feel very strongly that we have to listen to them. They have something to say instead of politicians who give speeches, or people who write articles, or sculptors who make sculptures. Theater artists create work that we see on stage. It's a way of thinking, a way of doing. It's a way of making a statement, and perhaps we have not listened enough. They have warned us about the climate change for a very long time, about corruption, about moral issues, social issues, and but also reminded us of the beauty of life. And if we miss anything, it's the beauty of theater performances, and getting together as a group, as a community, and watch something and then talk about it, which is a big function of it. Today we have something new. We have something significant. I think we are going to focus on the theater of the real, somehow strongly connected also to the idea of documentary theater. And with me is Carol Martin today as a co-host. Also, it's the first, so we have a theme for this week. We will have a second week in the future about this, where we will talk about theater. The theme in this fall also is a little bit theater, performance, and the political. After we focused, on voices from artists, where we feel who have been on the right side of justice, on the complex struggle for freedom, liberty, and free speech over centuries. And I think also now they are on the right side. We have guests with us. Carol selected artists she feels, and we both feel, are of significance in the field, of importance. Their work serves as a model and puzzle pieces to create an overview on that field. And with us is the great Hotel Modern, we would say, or Hotel Modern, or I don't know how we would say it exactly in that way. We will hear it. And Pauline Kalker, Herman Helle, Arlène Hoornweg are with us today, and they will talk a little bit about who they are. And but I would like to welcome Carol Martin, who's a professor of drama at the NYU Tisch School of the Arts, and also for Abu Dhabi. And her books include Theater of the Real and Dramaturgy of the Real, and of the real and the world on the world stage. And her articles have been in contributions, essays, translated in books in many languages. And I think over the last decades, her field, she kind of supported, discovered, reinforced the theater of the real, perhaps is the most significant contribution also coming out in a support of development in contemporary theater that we all have to take serious, have to take note, and it is of meaning and of support and of importance. She, of course, is a guest editor of TDR, where her work has been featured so many times, and she has been invited, of course, in universities around the world, and has been a keynote speaker, and in many fields of theater, highly respected as an academic, but also as within this theater community. So, Carol, welcome to being here with us, and give us a little overview over the field, and tell us a little bit what is theater of the real. Why should we pay attention? Then we go to our artists.
Okay, great. So first of all, hello everyone, and thank you, Frank, for inviting me to co-host. I'm very excited, and I'm so happy that Hotel Modern is our first guest. I write about them in my book, Theater the Real. Um, I saw their production of Camp at St. Anne's Warehouse in 2010, and I was certainly taken with what they were doing on so many levels. But before I'm going to give them a larger introduction, but I'm just going to say a very few things about Theater the Real. You know, at the time when I began thinking about the subject, there was a lot of work that was attempting to create interventions in justice, to portray specific events from certain vantage points, to claim that this is tribunal theater, or a way of bringing justice outside of the law. Uh, Autobiographical theater. There was restored village performances that claimed fealty to original events. So I thought documentary, which we tended to use in the US more verbatim, used more frequently in the UK. So I looked at all of it and saw a relationship, and in originary ideas, but I decided to call it Theater the Real as an umbrella term that incorporates many different approaches and many different understandings, many artistic methods in somehow representing, interrogating, interacting with real events. So that was the unifying idea of Theater the Real. You know, you can never, yeah, one should never dictate what people should call their own work. So all of these terms proliferate: documentary, verbatim, nonfiction, theater of witness, tribunal theater, and they're all fine. You know, I would argue for a little bit more clarity, because each kind of approach does something slightly different, or perhaps has slightly different methodology, but so be it. Theater the Real. So I want to say a few words about Hotel Modern, to introduce them, and then we'll let you take it away. So the company was founded in 1997, and Hotel Modern has done works about history. I think the most recent one is Our Empire, and that's about the early history of the Netherlands and Indonesia, and a vast scale model of the Indonesian archipelago fills the stage. There was early on the Great War, about World War II.
About World War One.
Sorry, yes, sorry, World War One. Thank you.
Sorry for interrupting, but
No, it's okay. Yeah, I'm happy to be corrected there. Camp, which I write about in Theater the Real. It's a careful miniaturization of the physical environment of Auschwitz-Birkenau. And at the time of writing my book, I said that camp gives us the impression that what went on in Auschwitz-Birkenau can be reconstructed and comprehended, can even be held in one's hands, that it is an absolute memory, the memory of the Holocaust in this place, that can be known and repeated. And all of those works, I believe, have soundscapes. I'm not sure about Empire, but they don't have verbal texts. So this is a unique feature of Hotel Modern's work. There's
well, also, we have to correct you about that. We will do that later on.
Okay, great. There's fanciful works. Seaplane Mothership is an apocalyptic work featuring old books, short films, scenes from after the bomb, pop art science fiction, gnomes and poets. It sounds fascinating. I would love to watch it. Shrimp Tales, another fanciful work about, quote unquote, the fascinating plague that calls itself humanity. And Hotel Modern uses 350 dried shrimp to play the roles of people. And there's Rococo, Hotel Modern's declaration of love to fantasy and imagination. It's about sex and curiosity, and what happens when lust and curiosity are given free rein. So I'm hoping you'll talk to us about what does happen indeed. So all the work uses scale models that take up entire stage spaces. When puppets are used, as opposed to shrimp, they are like approximately 2.5 inches high. Is that right? Like a finger length. So the artisanship that goes into creating this work is enormous. At the same time, there are, and I think this is, so one of, Hotel Modern's work comes up against theater of the real, it comes up against puppetry, it comes up against, very innovative scenographic design. It has a unique dramaturgy. But one of the things I personally love is that the human performers, so the company members, the 3 company members, are always present their manipulation of the puppets in visible ways that help us, make us think about the nature of human agency in historical events, in fanciful stories, and even biblical myth. I just want to mention the Hotel Modern has one of the most fabulous websites of any theater company ever on the planet. And maybe somebody can put that in the chat, maybe I will in a moment. But there's, in my own personal viewing of miniature things, I just wanted to say that I grew up with Colleen Moore's Fairy Castle, which it's a dollhouse. It's a huge dollhouse, but it's in the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. And it was built around, I think in the 1920s by Colleen Moore, who was a silent film actor. So she had excess money. And it has things like a willow tree that really weeps, and books authored by famous authors, and a staircase where the fairy queen can float up the circular staircase. And more recently, but also coming out of Chicago, there is the Nutshell Studies of Unexplained Death, which were created by Francis Glesner Lee. And these are exquisitely detailed miniature crime scenes that Glesner created to train homicide investigators in how to look for clues to a crime. And now they reside in Harvard, but they're all online, so one can look at them. So, the whole idea of why miniaturization. So I just wanted to mention one more work. I think Hotel Modern did Rossini's 1818 opera, Mosè in Egitto, or Moses in Egypt, and which I watched last night for the first time. And it seems like your work has always been spectacular in that it invites us very explicitly into a certain kind of viewing. And the dramaturgy seems built upon notions of spectacular. But with Moses in Egypt, it takes on an even grander scale because there are the opera singers on stage as well. So I'd just love to hear you begin to talk about your work, and and we'll ask questions as we go along.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I don't know if it was clear that we filmed the models and we filmed the puppets. So yes, so what the audience see is us filming the puppets and the models on stage, and it is projected on the big screen. And together with the soundscape, the composer who's on stage, he makes the sounds, the live soundscape. So that comes together, and so it's us making the film and the audience see us doing it at the same time. So, and seeing the results.
Yeah.
Say a few words about who you are. So, maybe Herman, Pauline, and then Arlène, and how do you fit in the company, and then we come to how you all got started. So first of all, again, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us. It's an honor. Thank you.
Okay, so my name is Pauline Kalker. I'm an actress and theater maker and yeah, actually Arlène, who was also an actress. Oh, you say who you are, Arlène?
Oh yeah, I thought it was okay, but yeah, I'm also an actress, and I'm Arlène Hoornweg, and yeah, Pauline and I, we've known each other for a very long time. Since we were
Vertel me even jouw verhaal.
Yeah,
Tell your story.
you are.
Okay.
Yeah, but we say who we are.
Okay,
So now you say you.
and tell
Okay.
a
Yeah,
bit more about
I'm
yourself.
Herman. Okay. I'm Herman and I'm
Okay.
a visual artist. I was trained as a visual artist, and now I turned into kind of theater maker together with Pauline and Arlène.
Yeah. So that's our names. And well, Arlène, you go on then.
Yeah, that I was wanted to tell that Pauline and I, we've known each other for a very long time. We started acting when we were very young, and we joined lessons together. And after that, we did theater school in Arnhem. And after school, we wanted to have a company. So, but we wanted to mix different art forms. And so we started with making a musical performance, and then we met Herman. And
yeah, because then Herman, he was my boyfriend at the time when Arlène and me founded Hotel Modern. And Herman, he as a visual artist, he made models for city planners and architects.
Architects, yes.
And I once helped him when he created a huge model of Rotterdam, and the environment was a model. I don't know about inches and feet, but it was well, like the size of half a football field.
Was, I think 100 feet long, I think, and 40 feet wide, something like that.
15 meters by 35 meters.
Yes.
I don't know, but it's like huge. He made a model like that, which was I found very theatrical. And then I got the idea of inviting Herman in Hotel Modern and working together and putting models on stage. And this was in 98. And so then from then on, we work with models on stage. And yeah, the first show we created was about a city, and it was without cameras. We had we just had the idea we're gonna bring a model on stage. What can models do? And the first idea was models you make a city with models. So we made a huge city with
with cardboard boxes.
Yeah. So the first step was
yeah, it was the models I made where all the buildings were like this, and then we had a whole stage to fill. So I thought, yeah, it had to be a city, real big thing. So I used the cardboard boxes that refrigerators were packed in. Nowadays they're in plastic, but then they were in cardboard, so big cardboard boxes stacked upon each other as skyscrapers and buildings. And then we started to figure out what we could do on theater with that and how we could get life into it. And so then the in the models, I always used strange things, household materials and glasses and brooms and everything that I could use. And there originated the idea of using later in the show. For instance, everyone's talking about in the Great War how parsley becomes trees. You put parsley, you put a camera on it, you put a little rabbit in front, and then everyone sees trees. And I found that out in the models. If you use, for instance, few pieces of wood, and you put one big pointed piece in the middle, and something green around it, everyone sees a village with the church steeple in the middle. And it doesn't look at all like it, but you have to trigger the imagination. And we try to do that in theater. So we with the boxes, so all kinds of materials we moved around in it, and then.
So for instance,
yes,
we had little breads, being the cars.
Buns, yeah.
Bread buns, and we moved them, in between the cardboard boxes, and so the breads were traffic,
hundreds of them,
and then we had big breads being buses, and then these French breads being airplanes, and so it was really we found all kind of ways of putting Herman's visual language on stage. And actually it was also theater of the real, because it was like a real city with real city elements. We had, for instance, we had a banana that was a character and that jumped off a building. He made
Suicidal, yes.
suicidal banana, and it was happy, but also
also perfume bottles that were having a party on the roof of a skyscraper, and beer cans. There were hooligans like, oh, so it was strolling
and the boxes could open, and there was a character inside. And from then on, so that was without cameras. And then Herman.
Yeah, but it was nice that at that moment, at that time, Rotterdam is now booming in a way, and everyone discovered it, and Rotterdam is hip, and you go there. But in those days, the city was not so popular yet. Cities have become more popular. Yeah, and we were trying to really excited about the city, and we are making a portrait of Rotterdam, the city where we're in, with all these things that.
Yeah, so then Herman, he worked, he bought a camera. At that time it was not so easy to buy cameras. Now everybody has a camera in his or her phone, but in 1998 that was different. So that was the first time when cameras got affordable, and Herman bought a camera, and in his studio he started to making models in front of the camera. So then you could see the model and a landscape happening, or
yeah. So he created the models in front of the camera, so you could see his hands making the scenery, the landscape.
And then he got the idea of making a show with that technique, and then he got in his head he wanted to do the First World War. Because war is very maybe it's good for you to tell why you wanted to make something about war.
Yeah, well, the first idea wasn't it wasn't that I wanted to make something about war. We found out that it was nice to make landscapes in front of a camera and see Hans doing that, and then I thought, yeah, maybe we should do it on stage. We should, and I had just the landscapes, and the first idea was. I had a vision of a little table with earth and on a big stage and a big orchestra making a lot of music, and then and people saw these hands making landscape with music. That was it. That was all. It was a kind of vision. But then of course you need a story, you need a drama, and I thought, well, what can happen in a landscape? And walking around, I didn't know. And suddenly in my head popped the image, the image of the landscapes of the First World War. These black and white pictures of destroyed landscapes with puddles of mud and an old tank and broken trees. Just that. And I thought, wow, maybe that. And I thought, oh, that could be beautiful to make. And then I thought, Then we thought maybe we should do that war. That's so simple
there
as
was
that.
also But I may be also interested to tell why you were in.
Why in the war?
Because it's war's big theme in our work.
Yes.
So that has a reason in our life. So maybe you tell your reason.
Yes, it was. Well, it also attracted because the desolation of the landscape, but it's also, of course, I was raised by parents who were in the Second World War. And my father was in Indonesia at the time. He was born there. And when he was 18, the war broke out and he had to go in the army and shoot Japanese planes. And then he was in a prisoner of war camp. And I always loved those stories as a kid. I thought they were fascinating and exciting. And of course, as a little boy. And then later, when I had to go in the army in 1977, there was
in Holland. There,
I had to go. Every boy had to go in the army then. And I was a bugle player in the army, so I had in Amsterdam. So I had an easy job, but I also 2 or 3 times we had to shoot. We had shooting practice, and I had to shoot a machine gun. And until that moment, I always thought it was the 70s that. All my friends were pacifists, and so was I. And guns were for crazy people. They were for bad people. Guns were bad, and people who like guns were bad. And then after the day of machine gun shooting, I realized, to my horror, that I enjoyed it really. It was so exciting to shoot a machine gun. Really, the sound and the noise and the power of it, and then, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. And I was really shocked by that. And then when I also understood something, I thought, oh, but this is why all these guys, these boys running around the world with guns, that's the reason the war, they all go into war. I understood something about it. And then I started wondering, what was it like for my father to shoot machine guns at airplanes, but he could be shot too. And it wasn't all fun. And then that stayed with me, that fascination for what it was like. I also realized I was in peacetime in war, but there was a Cold War, and sergeants were always talking of the Russians who were coming. And I thought, crazy talk. But then I realized,
but then also you tried out your machine gun on a helmet.
Yeah, my own helmet. Yes, was yeah, but also part of that story. That
so you guys, in a way, the miniature worlds, video very early. You created, invented a form of showing stories or sharing your thoughts. Going back to Carol's introduction, there's kind of a history as being part of theater of the real and the new forms, how to produce it. What's your reaction? What you hear? What she said about you guys? And
I think after this was what we were coming. So that Herman chose the First World War, which was not the war that his father fought in, but it was a war in which we could tell a story with models. And then we found out, because this show became a very powerful, evoking performance, we had huge success. We found out that with models, we could recreate history, and we could recreate battlefields. We could really be there, and with the little cameras we had, we could look through the eyes of the soldiers that fought in the trenches live, because there are of course many films of the First World War films, and there are theater pieces, but what we do live animation film, it recreates. It has the best of theater and the best of film at the same time, and also the best of puppetry. And I think, yeah, in a way by accident, because we made models and theater and we have these themes in our lives, this is what happened. And after the Second World War, I got the idea. Oh, the First World War. I wanted to make a show about the second, about the Holocaust, as my grandfather and the parents of my grandfather were killed in Auschwitz and in Sobibor. And then I thought this method is so great. Yeah, it brings it back. So yes, so physical. The theater is physical, and our models bring all landscapes, cityscapes, landscapes. It brings them physical in the theater, and we can witness the world. And
also together with the sound, so it's very sensitive, very with your eyes, with your ears, etc. So it's you are really there.
Yes, many senses are triggered, and so then we wanted to create Camp, which also is a documentary, and therefore it was really important for us to be documentary in that way, and also with the First World War actually. Yes, we wanted to recreate that. The camp, or actually it's not exactly Auschwitz-Birkenau. It's based on some features, but it's not exactly, because the scale would be much bigger. So it is a kind of Auschwitz-Birkenau, but not exactly what it was. But the events that happened there, they happened, and the reenaction is it gives the opportunity to the audience to witness what happens, to be there physically, but of course not feel the pain or, you know, I would never recommend anyone to be witness of that physically, or to be in a camp that, like nobody once said, it's traumatizing. But using puppets, it is not traumatizing, but it is opening your mind, the eye in your mind, allow the images and allow the events to come in and to take them in and to reflect on them. So I think that's what our art form.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carol.
Yeah,
One of the things you
so
described
like
in thus far is moving from these from Herman's cityscapes, which are fascinating and theatrical to look at, to within these large scapes, creating human dramas and enabling both the macro view of, let's say, the war field, and with the puppets and the camera on the puppets and the live feed animation at the same time, being able to zone in on how the individual soldier puppets are moving, experiencing this war. So it's, and I think the same thing is in camp, and it's an incredible micro and macro view simultaneously. But how do you get to which scenes in the drama that you want to portray? I mean, because you have to make, and then you have to dramaturgically, you know, put them back to back. What is that process like?
well, the process, we always do a lot of research for our performances. For like with the First World War, we read a lot of books because there are no survivors. So we read a lot of books, a lot of letters, and so we had this big bulb of material. And with camp, we talked a lot to survivors and heard their stories and read a lot. And then with camp, for us, it was we wanted to show the machinery of the camp. So we wanted to show a day and a night in the camp, and it was about like the heart beating of the train that comes in, people getting out. So the audience sees what where the people were led to, and eventually the gas chambers where they were killed. So for us, it was very the first thing we thought, the gas chamber must have seen with the gas chamber and the train coming in. So that were and then we heard stories of the survivors, and some, they were very, like, we have to put them in. For example, like a man told that they had to witness fellow prisoners being hanged, and that was so something so terrible and so cold, and so we had to put that in. So, and
yeah, but
Okay. But what also important for is we like I said, we have a lot of research, we have a lot of wishes we want to put in the show. Oh, that's a possibility, and then always there comes a moment that we try it with puppets and a camera, and that's a decisive moment, because there's a lot possible. A lot of things are possible with cameras and puppets, but a lot of things are not, and you can only find out by trying. So a lot of things we throw away because it's not possible to do with a camera, and then doing it changes because other things are possible, and it's a lot of depends on the what the puppets can do, and
for example, like within camp, we tried dialogue. First, we tried like in the First World War performance, we have these texts of the soldiers. So you hear Pauline and I, we do the voiceovers, and that there are letters from soldiers. You hear, so we have text in that. But in camp, we tried to do dialogue, but it didn't work. The puppets, it wasn't real. It didn't have the power. So we decided to skip text, to only hear the sounds, and it made it even it made it more stronger to look at.
And how did you think about putting yourselves in the performance? I mean, especially with camp. I mean, it's one thing to manipulate puppets and not have the body of the puppeteer as part of the kind of dramaturgy of the stage. But it seems that one of the things you do when you decide to enter the performing area to manipulate the puppets, how, you know, in different ways, in different situations, that your very physical presence becomes part of the dramaturgy. I'd love to know how you think about that.
Well, we see ourselves as in these shows, not in every show, but we see ourselves as mediums. So we are there to manipulate the puppets. We choose for that attitude on stage. So we are totally focused on the puppets and on the images we create.
Mm-hmm.
So we never look at the audience. We don't make contact with the audience. We do, as we are aware that, or in a Great War, we are aware that we give energy on stage. So, for instance, when I sit with my microphone saying a voiceover, and then I have to cross the stage to make a scene. When it's an energetic stage, I decide to run energetic, even though I could also run like this. But then I use my body and my energy to run. But I'm not in that way. We are aware, like we are the motor, we are the gasoline, we are the gasoline and the motor of this machine. So we have to make these things work, and with our physical energy, or we create like dance. It's more like choreography. We dance on stage, but like Arlène said, in the Great War we have text. So then we are really giving all our acting skills to act, but then we decided to the audience is in our back, so the audience does not see our face. We decide to look at the screen, and but then still the fact that we are there live, we are aware that the audience looks with us at the screen. So we give focus, and with camp we are aware that there are some scenes in which we divide puppets to different parts of the camp, and then we are also, so then it's more mime or dance contribution, and but yeah, in a way, and with Great War, Herman, his hands are often on camera, and then he puts in plants, or he puts in dead soldiers. Actually, in the Great War, you don't see living puppets; you just see feet, and you look through the eyes. So it's totally a point of view. And then sometimes you see like Herman's hands on camera, making a landscape green again, like putting in. And in that way, his hands are a kind of, we are not religious, but in a way, they are the hands of God or of fate.
Storyteller.
Yeah.
They are both storyteller, but also fate. Who decides you live, because there's also a scene where the puppets put in, and then the hands are like taking the lives,
killing them, like this,
killing,
grenade shots, and they're flying through the air by do it like this. Yes.
Yeah.
Like in camp, it is like more roles we play, because we manipulate, but we are also like almost perpetrators, because we set the thing in motion. So it is, it's not that we walk around like we're there, but it's a kind of emotionalist that we do it with kind of distance. But it's also that's.
Yeah, but there's also a scene where I pick up the puppets, and then I try to do that as tender as I can. Yeah. So sometimes I really want to take care of the puppets. So when it's night, they go to sleep, and then I really try to do it as soft as possible, picking them up. So one time we take care of the puppets, and another moment we kill them, or we just place them. So
your physicalization is really, really important as you describe it, as part of the whole energy or the ambiance, or the subtleties of meaning in the piece. But Frank, did you have something you wanted to ask?
Do we have a minute maybe to show on a screen to share, so we could have a small excerpt?
We don't have, technically, we are not able.
Oh, sorry, no, we don't have.
We got the.
We got the email.
Yes,
Just
Carol, you have a second somewhere, but
I have what I have is I have the website, but I have also the link. Let me just see here to Moses.
But Moses actually,
Yeah.
it's directed by Lotte de Beer. So we are actually not the creators of Mose. The creators is Lotte de Beer. She used us to play a role. So in Mose we play the role. We play the mass scenes. We play the plagues. We are also manipulated of the but it's
we
not a
don't people. You know, everybody can look it up. It's easy to find. Just a question. You know, one can write plays. You can dance. For theater, you can, or you say you make a film. Why do you think the way you work, the idea of the model, theater as a model, and the camera, why do you think this is the form you chose? Why is it?
Well, we just it evolved, and
Yes.
it's also where our talent is. It was not a decision. It was something that happened to us, and
Yes.
it was based actually I was always interested in more a little bit more in physical theater and in visual theater and objects. I always liked objects. Arlène, you were also not so much fond of text theater, I think.
No. So it was something, and we liked visual art very much, and performance. So like with Rococo, it is more like a performance thing we do. So that are elements that we really liked very much, and not classical way of acting and classical way to classical pieces.
And it was our encounter with Herman's work as a model maker, and that we applied just by thinking, wow, this model is great. Let's put it in theater, and this worked so well that we thought, no, it was like an invention, like, oh, this is so great, let's do more with this. And then Herman brought in working with cameras. We got a composer, Arthur Sauer, who designed soundscapes, who made sound concepts that did well with our models. So it's just something that happened to us, and we fell in love with that way of working. It was like an addiction. Like, once you can tell stories about a whole world, so why go back to a few characters?
Yes, and like films too, and in a way, I was trained as a painter on the academy, and after the academy, I didn't paint anymore. I didn't know for whom and what, and I couldn't anymore. And I started making objects and more three-dimensional, and now it all comes together in a way. The three-dimensional models, and sometimes I think I'm painting again with a camera on a flat screen. But the great thing is that it's not a painting. It's just the illusion of it has everything movie has, and a painting. It's you can play with illusion and depth but it's not really that the audience sees the depth by moving the camera. And at the same time, it's a three-dimensional model. You can make the whole world on stage looks wonderful too, like in our empire. Like all the green of the islands of Indonesia there, it looks wonderful. And then on screen you see the little dramas playing out on these islands. So like Carol said, the macro and the micro, that. And in love with the medium in a way.
A rich art form that it's not only, of course, the visual that is very important, but also the sound, and also us acting. So a lot of ideas and things we want to express, we can do it in very different ways. So it's a very rich art form we invented, and it gives us the opportunity to tell the stories we want to tell. And to say things about what we think is important, or things we encountered in our own life or in our family life, in our etc. And we are able to although it is limited in a way, and like Herman said, you cannot tell everything, and sometimes we are really struggling, like, oh man, we want just to tell a story, and then it's really a fight. But it's so rich, and it is yeah, it's very rich material.
And I want to also go into the documentary.
In some of your work, there's also, it's not, so you describe so beautifully your how you create a world through this incredible attention to detail. But there is a critical point of view operating, and it's definitely there in camp, but it's also there in one work that Herman might have done alone, and that is Heroes, which was about September 11th. And in that, there, I live in New York, so we watched the planes fly into the towers, and then of course it was repeated ad nauseum by the media. But what Herman did, and what Hotel Moderne did, is show that event from the vantage point of the people in the towers. So this was, and in doing that, entitling the piece Heroes, and David Bowie's music was the accompaniment. There is a humanizing of an event that was called beautiful by some people. So we see the plane from the vantage point of a puppet, of a person standing inside the tower, and this is extraordinary. And those kinds of choices, I think, in each of your works goes beyond simply replication, but is an inquiry into the event itself. I just really wanted to say that. I have here a little clip of camp, which we can try to, should we do that?
Yes.
Try to show a tiny bit here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let me just see if I can be successful. So, yes, I have to do this, and then wait, and then I have to somehow. Okay, just bear with me. I'm going to choose this through my share screen. There we go. Here we go. Are we good?
Yes.
Yes, you see it.
So also the camp happens over the course of a day, and but it also happens over the course of the Holocaust itself, when the mechanism of killing became more efficient, from killing prisoners individually to the use of Cyclone B, to gassing, and in between there was killing individually, pushing bodies into gas chambers. So the sense of time in your work is not literally the time of the event. It's a kind of, I don't want to say mythic, but it is time that is not exactly historical time. I'm wondering if you could talk about how you think about time.
Well, we always look like what's the clock what we call the clock of a show. And we also, of course, when you build a story, you make you work with what is opbouw. You make a composition. You make a composition, and in which you can often go from small to big, to medium to small again to big, and then you also have the idea of the longer line. So yeah, a play or a novel or a movie, it always has a composition, and the difference between a picture or visual art and theater is time. So we of course we manage time in a very aware way, and we often play with yes, this thing of as I say, yeah, you can make a day and a night, but that's in a later stage, or that's I mean you make you make a rhythm when you create. So when we work, that's also an answer of your question that you asked. How do you decide which scene you put in? Arlène explained we do research very broadly, and then we try to work out the things that we find, and some things when with our means when we can tell them right, they can become a scene. But the montage we do like in a later phase. So first we gather a lot of material, and we have many scenes, small scenes, big scenes, and at that in the first few phases we did not decide what to start with. So when we have all this material and we have all kind of scenes, we have and then we think, okay, how we're going to make the montage of this. And then we can think of different things, like for instance, okay, we make a day and a night, or we can
but for example, it was very different with the Great War, that it was clear that it would start in an up way, because the soldiers that were going to war, that they were, not all of them, but they were kind of optimistic and delighted that there's going to be a war, we're going to fight, and then with Christmas we're back, etc., etc. So the performance started very up and almost in a very cheerful, playful way, and then during the performance we go, as the mud gets bigger and bigger, we also suck in more and more in the mud, and the audience gets deeper and deeper in that terrible war. But with making camp, it was very different, because you couldn't start up or had like this classical line going down, 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 because you were already down. It was already so terrible. So we thought, oh my God, there is no way we can be optimistic, or there is some kind of hope or whatever. There's no hope. And so
couldn't get worse.
In a way, like the train in the performance with the sound, the performance is also like this. One line.
But in that, of course, you still make,
it's not boring.
make a thing like in the beginning we show only before the first train comes in. We show the one or three an execution. So we do very deliberately make see how we dose things, and also like there were also some executions that were shown in another way. Then we think, no, it's just too much. We cannot show all the gross things. So we have to think very carefully how we dose things, and it's deliberate. At first you see 3 individuals killed, and then as you see the total horror, we see a guessing where thousands are killed, and then we go back like we are here again. But so we just we think very well out in which order we show all the material, and sometimes we have to throw material away because like with film montage, And sometimes we think, oh, we don't have enough of this or that, and then we add more. So, but it always kind of has that it becomes heavier, even with camp, that, you know, in the end we show all the dead bodies, and in the beginning we don't show them. So yeah, we often go from some, and we start with kind of happy propaganda.
Yeah, that is true.
So it's always a little bit from up to down.
Yeah.
But it in a way a bit like commercial movies. We try kind of rhythms. We try to create rhythms that to create trains that you can hop on and go on. And yeah.
But it's seldom a story that we tell. It's mostly it's a world that we show, or an periods of it.
But with our actually, there was also something I wanted to add about why we use models, or what, and the documentary thing that we also, like you said, Holland and Indonesia. I'm not sure if all the audience is aware that Indonesia was a colony of the Netherlands or of Holland.
Yes.
So we then also thought we're going to do About Time. We wanted to show 350 years in 1 hour. So we like to experiment with this time thing. Like, okay, we do 24 hours, and then we thought, okay, let's do 350 years.
From the first ship to the last ship, but we couldn't.
We failed.
It was too much.
It was too much, but it was something that we tried, but it did, because at first when we started this process, we thought we only wanted to show the independent war, which was like the war in which the biggest war that the Netherlands fought out. But then we thought, how did the Dutch get there? And then we went to 1600 something, where the Dutch actually invaded or started their first colonial activities. And this is also something why we also like working with models. Like a model is created to get a notion of scale, or to get an idea of numbers, and to get grip on literally big things. That's what models are for. But it also works in events, like literally very big events, like the Holocaust, like the First World War, like war in general, like the 9/11 attack. It helps us as artists, but also what we shared it with an audience, to get grip on these huge events, and to just get grip on them. They're huge, and then we put them in a stage, and then you can see thousands of characters, but you can see them, and you can look at them all, and you can be there, and you can somehow get a grip on history, or get a notion. And what you say, like we also get in. It's not always that we film puppets, but we also sometimes just film only what the puppets see. We don't even film the puppets, but we just film what they see, how they see the world. So we really, and that's what's projected on the screen. So the audience, they can see this huge world that they can try to grip up, and we can be totally in it. But when you're inside, you don't see the whole thing. So what happens in our theater, you can see both this huge thing and the perspective inside. And what we do, it's interesting that you notice that we go from one perspective to another, like Herman does in his movie. At one point you look from the cockpit and see these World Trade Towers getting closer and closer, like you have the point of view of these pilots. And from the other moment, you get the point of view of the people in the towers. That he does that in his animation film, but we also do that on stage. So this is also giving so much possibilities, like looking to history, or looking to events that happen, that we have to take stand in, but we can see different points of view, which is super interesting, of course, and see the large scale. And I think this is as storytellers what we've been playing with in our work. So with this Dutch colony,
that the performances are about the First World War, about the Holocaust, about colonization of Indonesia. We perform these performances a lot abroad, and we always talk with the audience afterwards. And with the First World War performance, for example, we performed in America. We did great big tours. And at that time, the audience was in this Iraq war. And for them, the performance, of course, it was about the First World War, but it was also about their war. They were fighting at that moment. And with with camp, we performed in Leningrad in Russia this year. And people, they were talking about the camps they had at this time where homosexuals are abandoned to. And we performed in Los Angeles camp, and afterwards we had talk with the people who were talking about the Mexican border.
But this is really interesting. People make it actual, but it's also about reviving history. So it's also about that colonization in Holland, people have forgot it, or the Holocaust, people are forgetting it. It is about camps today, but it's also about the camp at that time, and it's also about the at that time. It's also about 1600. How did it start? So we can. It's also really about history and looking at history with new eyes, or with eyes that we did not have. We can create images, like inside the concentration camp. There was film, but the films are destroyed. There were some pictures taken out, but not pictures of everything. The camps, the gas chambers were destroyed. So by recreating it, we can show it also, like the 16th century, the 16th, 17th century, where colonization of Indonesian started. We can create that world and we film it, and it's there.
It is interesting that I think if you that after the show, it's almost always when we talk to the audience, almost always about the show and about what it means for today, what similar things are happening now. And that's I think I never had it after in a movie about the Second World War, that you talk afterwards about the war in Iraq, what was going, or another war at the moment. It's because maybe because it's so it's real and unreal. It's of course it's not really Auschwitz, or it's not really the First World War, but it's also really on stage. People see and see actually the buildings, see the people, and in their minds, in their imagination, they make it real. They make the puppets real people. They make it a real camp. So in a way, they were witnessing a real genocide, or a real war, or a real people going into Indonesia, walking through the jungle.
Colonization.
But it's happening now. It's happening now in theater.
Yeah, and also maybe that in cinema it's always more realistic. You have real actors. It's more historical drama, etc. Yeah. With us, it's more abstract. So it's more open, maybe.
Do you think that part of this is because there isn't a verbal text? In other words, because there's no verbal text, that it's.
But there is. Well,
in the great
in camp there is not, as Arlène explained. In camp there's no text. That's correct.
There's a lot of room for the spectator to have their own relationship with the events. In other words, because there isn't a verbal text in camp, that it becomes iterations of the events that are portrayed are kind of iconic, but that one can perhaps immediately make a leap to. This is not only the Holocaust, Auschwitz, Birkenau, but this is also the nature of a certain kind of incarceration and a kind of industrialization of human bodies, with the panopticon, with the guard in the guard tower, that we can make those leaps because we're not held to a literal narrative. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, but for camp, it's really what you say. It's true. It is not verbal, but Great War has extras of letters, and almost all our other performances do have some text. So it's not like in general for all our shows, but in camp definitely the fact that we chose for not using language is bringing people even more in that situation. I think also that's why we decided to skip the language. But in Great War, where language is important, although it's not big, we look through the eyes of the soldiers, and then with the voiceover, you can hear their thoughts, or you can hear their letters that they write in their diaries. So in that one, the text is very important because it's brings you in the mind.
Yes.
And also sometimes we give information that we cannot show with.
Yeah, a question. You said it's about huge things, what you do your work about, and it's also connected to the now. And that moment, the time of Corona we are in, is anything changing in your thinking about theater? And are you working on anything right now?
I'm not
We
thinking.
Trying
Yeah.
to.
So we took the big things can also actually be things in big things that happen in our own lives. For instance, we made also some performance about the death of Arlene's father, who died when she was very young. So the big things are not necessarily always big in regard of using
With a
character.
lot of puppets, a lot of.
But no, it actually did not really change our way of thinking, I'm afraid.
Oh, well, maybe, but maybe that for me, theater is even more important. And what
Why?
is
Why
really
is it
very
more? Yeah. And what do you want?
in the art, I can say, if not only theater but art, and that's what's that? Oh, about for maybe 10, 15 years in Holland, art and artists were very in a way it was almost not dirty to be an artist, but it was not, you were not respected in a way, and the government didn't give you the feeling that art was worthful and important. So, and that was really about 10, 15 years, and being artist and having a theater company, it was very commercialized. So the only thing we were thinking about was, how can we make money? We are very lucky to be subsidized by the government. There are so many rules you have to you have to
Obey.
obey. Yes, that it was almost making art was becoming on the something like there, and that really did something with our minds as being an artist, more being like a manager or being, and with the corona, suddenly everything fell down and it was silent, and people were in shock, and what happened. It happened all throughout the world, and then suddenly people climbed. The making art and little initiatives came, and people were so happy when something happened, and suddenly also had that we get the government gives us more respect and more respectful towards art, and giving us the feeling that it's important, and not only the government but also the people. And so that is something that is something very positive, that's along with all the negative things and the terrible things, that I think that that is something very positive that came out of this.
It becomes more obvious. It became more obvious that people need art, that art is needed, that people really need it. And before Corona, there was also guys, but what is art? What is the use of art? It was always the use of art, and then became a kind of commercial use of the value it has, or the money, the economic value. And now everything stopped, and theaters were closed, everything, cinemas were closed, and museums, and everyone's craving for art, and it became more obvious now that art has a value that's in itself that cannot be expressed in any other way, and that's quite important. And in Midtown, we are trying to.
We're taking our. To go to your other question, what are you working on at this time? We are also with a lockdown period taking our time to think, to work a little bit ahead in thinking what we have. Of course, some plans. We have we have a plan of a next part of our empire, and maybe taking another period or another colony. Because Holland also had Suriname, which is in South America. So we are thinking of going into that theme again, but then maybe also with a descendant of slaves. You know, Holland was also a huge slave trade nation, and we really have the idea of, oh, it would be interesting to do something with that. But then of course we are all white. So we're kind of, we cannot do that on our own. That would be not a good idea. So we're thinking of how to make a collaboration possible, maybe to make a show about that theme, more about what colonization evoked, and also we were asked to make a huge a family opera. To take a next step in our opera, in an opera work, and make a concept of how we can use our art form in opera again, but then also an opera for both children as adults. So we are trying to think about that. And we are also thinking, oh, maybe it would be nice to do some things with the VR glasses, or to make, as we, Herman, we have a daughter who has autism, thinking of making a show especially for children who have autism, and also a show that is possible to play in their schools, as maybe going to theater is too hard for them. So we're also thinking about a children's play, especially then for children with autism, but it would be nice if it's fun for everybody, and try to make that kind of interactive. Or also we are going to think about game technology or something interactive, so like new techniques, and see if we can bring that in, that because as our daughter is really helped by playing games are very important for her, but also showing her the way in the world. So we are thinking also about like some kind of adventure of a little girl that is based on our daughter, in a kind of game world. Well, we're just, fantasizing about all these different elements that could maybe end in our new shows.
Yes. It's quite a lot.
Quite a lot, but we did not choose which one is coming next. The opera is coming probably in 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And we are also thinking of another theater company that we find very interesting, and talk with them if maybe we can collaborate.
Yeah. They're more actors, so.
That's what we'll see. We have a lot of ideas, and we are just like the three of us in the atelier, and thinking about all these things, and working them out, and.
But they're not worked out yet, as
no.
far as we can tell more about them.
No, very at the beginning, and beginning, and try to.
It was actually the first Corona lockdown kind of hit us very hard, because we also been working very hard, and also had to write the new application, and then also at one point we weren't. The money that we asked for was not coming, so we thought we have to maybe stop with the company, because we don't get subsidy anymore. So then we had to fight to get the subsidy back, and to make the politicians give more money to artists. So then we put on all our energy on that fight, and it's not a creative energy, it's just fighting to get your money. So meantime we couldn't think of our next plans, and now luckily, maybe also because of Corona, the government had some more money for theater, and companies like us are saved, and now we can breathe again, and being in this process of developing all these new different plans that we are the coming years we will let you know.
But it's a very uncertain time, because actually we would have done the performances this week. But now suddenly the government said they're going to shut down the theaters for 2 weeks, and then it's like okay, and so it's very strange. You have to
Well, actually,
All
there
the
is a new
time.
project. I'm actually directing. It's not with Herman and
Yeah.
Arlène, but I'm directing also a co-production of Hotel Modern with a company which is actually also about about Indonesia, the colony there. And then for children. So then we tell the story of the Dutch colony in one of the islands of Indonesia, and where there was a kind of genocide actually, that the Dutch killed people from the Banda, from an island, one of the Banda
Banda?
Islands. Yeah, they killed many of the people because the Dutch wanted to keep the monopoly on the
Spices,
trade
yeah.
of spices.
Nutmeg.
Nutmeg, and then the people of this island sold their spices also to other countries, like people from England, people from other countries. They wanted free trade, and the Dutch said, no, you can only sell it to us, and we have this deal. And then they said, oh, we don't have a deal, we just sell to everybody who we want to. And then the Dutch, they went into this island and kill the men who resisted, and the others were made slave. So this is really a horrible story, and the show that I'm directing now is also telling this story, but then in a way for children. But it's still telling the story and also showing that how the Dutch also even about monopoly, and that they want to keep everything for themselves and that they don't want to share. And yeah, it's in a way it's going to be a fun performance about colonialism and about monopoly, economic things, and about the importance of sharing. Yeah.
One of the things that is rather extraordinary, I think, is how many people today come to learn about historical events through theater and film, learn about them in greater nuance and detail than from the more conventional means of reading history books. It seems to put an extra burden on artists in terms of really mining and representing relationships to history and getting it right. And at the same time, having a critical lens while constructing, these great detailed stages. And it's that very reason why I wanted to draw attention to Theater the Real, because there's so many methods, so many claims to truth. This is what really happened. We assembled these documents or correctives to events. I mean, there's a great play coming out of the UK, which is called The Color of Justice, and it happened well after the murder of a young man on the street by a group of white racist thugs murdered a young black man. But the play, the performance of the play, which I believe was at the Tricycle Theater itself, really kind of accumulated everything that had happened, assembled it, digested it, and presented it back to a British audience, and really in the service of articulating the importance of what the inquiry found. And what they found was unconscious racism. So it was a kind of underscoring and closure that the play itself provided to about 10 years, I estimated, of events in the British press where the young white thugs were never convicted of the crime. So, I mean, that's just one example. Yours is another. There's so much interesting work that this kind of theater does, and it puts artists in new kinds of situations. So I'm wondering, Frank, if you want to offer some closing observations. So great hearing about your work and your
first of all, thank you, Carol, for being with us and for Hotel Modern. I think someone said theater is a model itself. For the moment, it's real on stage, whether it's about a real thing or not, but it's a model, and it shows that with imagination and in a symbolic way, it shows a reality. What has happened, might have happened, should have happened, and it is real. We had the Indian writer Abhishek with us. He said, there's TV shows, there's films all around India, but my place gets shut down by the government. It affects people in a different way. It has an impact. People remember it. And there's truth to it. And I think as much as lawyers and the justice system is looking for truth, as much as I think journalists, politicians looking for, artists are also looking for truth and representing truth, but knowing there are different levels, different point of views, as you said. And perhaps we listen more to a puppet. And because we project on it, it's not represented in a human body, where it might have an agenda. It's not male or female often. It's not really clear. I think Handspring, Basil Jones said that why they were successful, why people listen to a puppet is because you can connect to it in a different way. It doesn't have an agenda. It can even say insulting things or other things that others don't listen to. And I think the time we live in, we do need some meaning, some guidance. There's the famous David Byrne film, Stop Making Sense. I think we have to start making sense. It's Jenny Best, the rock and roll and post-punk singer, says. And I think what you guys do, the inquiries, is a contribution to do that. And I think the idea of the theater of the real gives a possibility for theater artists to rethink also what they are doing, what impact it can have, and what it should have. It perhaps always had, but we have to refine it in a new way. And I think your work is significant because of that. There are real histories, alternate histories, and we look at things from different ways. And that's what so many of the artists we talk to said. We often also go back to classics, but we tell it through the eyes of a minor character, of a different way, so that official histories say, no, this is just one way to look at it, and it comes from people in power. And perhaps it's not really what happened, just to be aware that there are multiple truths out, and that everybody who says this is how it is lying to us, what we think the Trump administration or many others who warn us, but they are the ones we should be warned for. And if someone says this is black and white, is this or that, there's one point of view, it's not true. And I think this work that stands for the theater of the real is of real significance. And it's a great responsibility, actually. Perhaps artists never ask for, but you guys are taking over responsibilities of what perhaps has been neglected by educational system in a way, or by history. So really, I think this is of great importance, and what you do is also fun, and it's great, and it's artistic invention. So it's a great contribution, and I hope you will be back soon. Carol, who's coming up, and maybe say a little bit on the next 2 days, little tiny words about them, and why do you maybe...
Ravi Mubin has an incredible body of work. I think that he's known as the master of the performed lecture, and he creates inquiries into how we come to know things and whether or not what we know is actually accurate. And then on Friday is Nicholas Kent, who is, of course, the founder of the Tricycle Theater and who produced many, I guess they would call verbatim plays. And yeah, I'm very excited to speak to both of them. They're both extraordinary, like Hotel Moderne. So thank you so much. It's really been great hearing about how you approach your work and how you understand it. And yeah, and thank you, Frank.
Very much.
So it's a great pleasure.
Yeah, and it's great to hear from Rotterdam, and
Yes.
we had with us Menno Plakker, from Canada, who has been a big supporter of the company, helps to organize their work. We didn't have the time to fully go into it, but thank you, Menno. And thanks to HowlRound for hosting us and for being a place for such, I think, important exchanges of ideas, and for listening really to the artists. And it's also remarkable how this company invented, how they explored this. We know someone, he was a boyfriend, he was in film, but he did models. We were acting, we didn't like, so they invented something. They did not know where it was going in the beginning. The opposite of what we often are being taught. So or the way how artists create their work is of significance, and an encouragement. Do something, work with fellow artists, explore what you have, and create something. You might find something great as Hotel Moderne did, and go to their website, hotelmodern.nl, I guess, right, in Netherlands, and And this is one way to do, and hopefully, it will inspire it. And I think the world of objects, moving objects, puppetry is a field that is of real significance, also because it includes an audience often easier of young audiences, and something that's truly neglected, and it's a great audience. So thank you all, and I hope you will stay safe and stay tuned in. And we all hope that things will go well in the United States here, and with all eyes on Georgia. And maybe we have to find a way for theater artists to get involved there. Thank you, and Carol, again, thank you, and see you all soon.
Bye.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you all very
Yeah,
much.
we had a good time.
With us. Thank
Thank
you. Thank you to be with us, Menno.